Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of 5 Facts. Today, we're going to be talking about the 2011 home invasion masterpiece, You're Next. This movie was directed by Adam Wingard and written by Simon Barrett, and we are going to be getting into some spoilers. It's not going to be too spoiler heavy, but there are a couple, so if you haven't seen it, go see it now. Fact number 1. Sharni Vinson took up martial arts for this movie. Sharni Vinson has a background in dance, and she thought that the physicality of that would give her an upper hand when dealing with aspects of this movie. She wanted her actions to be a lot more authentic, though. She wanted to really be able to sell that she would know how to swing an axe, that she'd be able to punch somebody, that all of her dodges and everything else that she put into this would be more authentic. So she decided to take up boxing and kickboxing to make those movements look more fluid. Despite the physicality of this movie, she said that Step Up 3D, which was her movie previous to this one, was actually much harder. It took 5 months to film that movie with a lot of 14-hour days for choreography alone, so I imagine that would get a lot worse when this one was done in only 4 weeks. Fact number 2. The primitive weapon choices of this movie were very intentional. The creators of You're Next wanted to have a fresh take on the home invasion genre. They didn't want to have some of the old tropes of tying somebody to a chair and torturing them. They didn't want to have some Uberman with a lot of weaponry and guns just being able to take people out. They wanted to strip it down and make it simple. They wanted axes, they wanted crossbows, they wanted just a more basic and primal feel to it. That's why they actually chose animal masks instead of like clown masks, child masks, anything like that. First off, it hadn't been done quite like that before, and also because they wanted it to have a more basic feel, that these people were animals and what they were doing. Most of the weapons they chose were medieval because of this. Fact number 3. Indie horror director Ty West was the first one to die in this movie. Here at Human Echoes, we're huge fans of Ty West. He directed one of our favorites all time, which is The Innkeepers, which is a really cool, creepy movie. He also made The Sacrament, House of the Devil, and did a segment on VHS. His segment was Second Honeymoon. Not the best segment on that entire thing, but it was still pretty good. In You're Next, he was actually the very first one to die at the infamous table sequence. He's the one that walks to the window and just takes an arrow, or it might have been a crossbow bolt, to the forehead. It's the short segment that actually gives context to how the tapes for VHS were found. Fact number 4. Sharni Vinson auditioned with an American accent. During the audition for You're Next, Australian actress Sharni Vinson prepared to do the role with an American accent. She spent several weeks speaking with just an American accent, trying to make sure that she could sell this so that the movie would be able to have that. When she went to the audition, they asked her to use her normal accent, and she was completely thrown off by this. They wanted her to play herself, and she'd been preparing to do a character for a long time now. Essentially, they had an idea to use the Australian part of her as part of the backstory for how she became a badass. She was caught so off guard by this that she actually muddled most of her responses, and it turned into a weird mix of Australian and American accents, just kind of puttering through the audition. Vincent thought that this was the worst audition of her entire career. She was incredibly surprised when she even got a call back from this one. Fact number 5. Popcorn facts. Sometimes it's a bit hard to come up with 5 really deep talking points for a movie, especially whenever there isn't a ton on the background of it, like you can find director commentary and things like that. But I wasn't able to find a lot of stuff that deserved its own segment, so we're just going to do a few quick popcorn facts. Sharni Vinson and Wendy Glenn were roommates at the time of filming. Wendy was the one who played Z, who ultimately ended up getting killed by Sharni. The movie was shot in 4 weeks in Columbia, Missouri, in a mansion that had been unoccupied for over 10 years. This made it so that it was really cheap for them to get in there and gave it kind of a nice aged look. Although Lionsgate sat on the movie for more than 2 years, it eventually killed in the box office. Its meager $1 million budget was blown up to $26 million over the first few weeks of its filming. On top of that, VOD sales and DVD sales have gone up quite a bit for this movie. A lot of rumors said that this was because one of the producers at Lionsgate at the time didn't like this particular type of horror, but in the end it got out there, so it's all good. The writer for this film was actually in it as well. Simon Barrett is the tiger-faced killer, like the one that has the tiger face mask. Last fact, for a movie with a small cast, this had a pretty huge death count. It got up to 15. Your odds were not very good to make it out of this house. Home invasion, particularly in the United States, holds terrible significance on the human psyche. It's a violation of your safest place, and holds all that is dearest to you. It's a line that once crossed is justifiably lethal. Your Next takes this to another level. In some ways, it's a fantasy of how we hope we can act if we're ever put into a situation like this. We hope that when the options are fight, flight, or freeze, we're the ones that can pick up the axe and start swinging. We always hope that we can be like Erin, who's smart and courageous under fire. That she's able to put that fear down below and actually work her way through and do what she has to survive. I imagine that some have thought that she was too competent, that her skills were too honed for a situation like this. I kind of disagree with that. Anybody who's been put through any sort of training is going to be a lot more competent in a fight or flight situation. Like, think about the gulf between even small fighters and somebody who doesn't know how to fight. Take a 250-pound man who's actually muscle-bound but has never fought a day in his life, and there's a pretty good chance that someone like Conor McGregor, or even the 125-pound champ, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, would be able to wreck their shop. It's just about knowing how to handle yourself, knowing the motions. It's a person who's thrown 10,000 punches versus just a few over the course of their entire life. This is kind of the situation that Erin was in because she was put through the ringer whenever she was younger. I love this movie. It's well acted, succinct, original, and filled with some really great kills. It's interesting to see a home invasion movie that doesn't use the break the cutie trope as well. That's where you have basically a very sweet person that has to go through just terrible, terrible things until they're so broken that they fight back. That isn't the case with this movie, and that's something we see a lot of in those home invasion types. This one, we see Erin, who's already a badass, just having to express that. I often think that this might actually be the best home invasion movie out there. It's definitely my favorite. Do you agree? What's your favorite? Do you agree with this? What's your favorite home invasion movie? Did you like the new Netflix original Hush? Are you into some of the more classics out there with real slashers from like the 70s and 80s? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. Also, if you like this, go ahead and hit that like button, hit subscribe, share it with your friends, all that good stuff. We here at Human Echoes really appreciate it whenever you guys do that. If you did enjoy this as well, go check out the podcast. It's all over this channel. You can also find it at humanechoes.com.